Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to talk about the natal chart of Kobe Bryant. Now, on this day that I'm making the video, of course, Kobe Bryant has tragically passed away due to a helicopter accident. I was bewildered, shocked, flabbergasted, couldn't believe it actually happened. Just reminds us we can go anytime. Cherish every moment of your life. Kobe, none of his family or friends will probably see this, but just in case, I just want to start out by offering my condolences. Legendary basketball player, one of the greatest of all time. I think he's likely top 10 NBA player. But anyway, and again, I want to offer my condolences to the family and friends of Kobe Bryant. In the event they likely none of his family or friends will likely see this, but if you know any of them, pass it on to him. I mean, pass it on to them, please. First thing I want to talk about, well, the chart that I saw online, it was interesting. They on Astro.com, it gives Kobe Bryant's natal chart a C rating. It was actually the information connected with his birth data was taken off some website on Weebly or something that said something about the birth certificate, but not an actual birth certificate, but one that somebody just drew, and it was kind of honoring or paying tribute to Kobe, and it gave a 5 p.m. Birth time. I actually saw this back in like March of 2019. I didn't submit it to Astro.com because I was questioning the authenticity of the time, because the source is not known where this actually came from, I guess. So it's not, so it has a C rating. But anyway, based on the chart, based on that birth data, Kobe Bryant, remember, there's a C rating, so I mean, it's like proceeding with caution with this. I'm using it right now because that is the chart that is available, but it is not, 100% verified. But anyway, that chart, based on the 5 p.m. birth time, gives some Capricorn rising, and it's really no shocker that he would have. I mean, if this is the case, Capricorn rising, of course, could be about, really evolving at a very young age. I mean, showing maturity very young. When he entered the league, I don't know if he was even 18. He was either 18 or right before he turned 18 or something. And he took on a very strong, responsibility very early, in showing a lot of professionalism, a lot of maturity at a very early point in his life. And also in the chart, he has the sun is conjunct Saturn. Interesting, which of course that could give like a Capricorn type flavoring. I understand this energy to some degree because I have Saturn conjunct my ascendant in my chart. And this, of course, could add to Kobe's discipline and maturity and very hard working ethic. This could have been a very strong, Sun conjunct Saturn, of course, could give a very strong focus on one's career and ambitions, and being, of course, in Virgo, striving to be as flawless and as perfect as one possibly can in those matters, in career related matters, focusing on a career, perhaps to be as far as being in one in which he could be very meticulous with details, and one, of course, which he could be as perfect, close to perfect as possible. Nobody's infallible. Kobe Bryant sure wasn't, but he wanted, I'm sure, to be as close to that as he could in his profession. And he was a lot closer to that than many other people that played in the NBA. Now, we also, in Kobe Bryant's chart, besides Capricorn, the Sun, again, as I stated before, Sun in Virgo, and the Moon being exalted in Taurus. And in this chart, it's a C rating chart on Astro.com again, falls in the 4th house. So that's the accidental dignity. So the Moon, of course, very well placed, being in its exaltation by sign and being in the fourth house. It tells me that he probably was a very good listener, being, the moon in Taurus, one of the better listeners in the zodiac, I'd say, along with the moon being in Cancer. It shows a lot of stability on his emotional level, that he wouldn't be the type to become very irrational very easily. It probably would take him a lot of persistent goading before he would really react emotionally. But when he would, I'm sure it could come out almost like a volcano, because that's how Taurus energy can be. He also, some of you may remember, he had that infamous physical confrontation, altercation with Reggie Miller that time. And interestingly enough, if this chart is accurate, both of them would have the sun, not just the sun in Virgo, but the Capricorn ascendant as well. So they were at, and also, if I'm not mistaken, both of them have Mercury in Leo retrograde. So Kobe and Reggie Miller might actually be more comparable, more similar than a lot of people actually think. Now, and another thing too, I thought was interesting, in Kobe Bryant's chart, as far as his natal chart, he has in that stellium, in that C-rated Astro.com chart, he has Mercury in Leo retrograde, conjunct the Sun in Virgo, conjunct Saturn in Virgo, all in that, in that stellium, one after the other. And the thing about it is, that shows me, of course, Mercury, the way stelliums work in a chart, if you have that series of conjunctions, and that makes the stellium, it's very systematic, the way it's interpreted and dissected. You start out with the first planet. The first planet in this energy, of course, Mercury in Virgo, and of course, maybe thinking about wanting to dominate and being retrograde. A little bit more review with this. And then, of course, conjunct the Sun, wanting to shine in these matters, with a lot of focus on details, perhaps by analyzing analysis of the enemy, the opposing team, and of course ending with Saturn, done in something career related. So there you go. And also the 8th house of power. This is something too. Sadly, Kobe also has Pluto, had Pluto and conjunct his Mars in his chart. Now, that wasn't all of it, but I think it may have attributed, perhaps dying violently through a crash, because Mars, of course, could be accidents, and Pluto, of course, is death. And falling in the 9th house of global communications. And Mars is also a ruler, it's the ruler of his intercepted 3rd house. Now, going to his 3rd house, I want to say 3rd house cusp in this chart on Astro.com puts it's at a critical degree. The 3rd house cusp at 29 degrees Pisces. Of course, that's a critical degree. And of course, the 3rd house governs short journeys. And also, too, you look at the fact that one of the rulers of that 3rd house cusp, of course, is Neptune. And that's close to his 12th house cusp of endings, is Neptune in that chart. Again, not to be overly redundant, but the C-rated Astro.com chart for him, which has Capricorn rising. Transit Mars at the time was very close proximity to his natal Neptune, one of those 3rd house rulers, and that could show something volatile happening in connection with the short journey. Something maybe he was, somewhat, which he might have had some enthusiasm and exuberance, and given it was Sagittarius. Now, sadly, too, at the time, transit Black Moon Lilith was very close to his 3rd house cusp at the time of the accident. And Black Moon Lilith energy, some people may not think it's really that significant in horoscopes and astrology. I believe it is. Chiron and the Black Moon Lilith could be very underrated astrological energy. I think they carry more significance than a lot of people give it credit for. And sadly, black moon with energy could be very negative and very dark. And you have a transit like that hitting. I mean, it was either he may have been exactly conjunct his third house cusp at the time, or very close to it. It was a very close conjunction, no matter how you look at it. And I wonder if this may have played somewhat of a role in this, in something, in this fate through his short journey. And of course, being in Pisces, it could be something that might have a little mystery. And I wonder if there might be something after when they do this investigation and why did the plane crash. Maybe there's going to be something that's going to be nebulous and unclear about it, or confounding, or befuddling, or what have you, given that this was in Pisces. So those are some things I wanted to get at, as far as Kobe Bryant's chart is. And also, he had in this chart preponderance of planets on the top part of the chart, which of course, when people have majority of their planets on the top half of the chart, not only they're generally more extroverted, more gregarious, as opposed to introverted, introspective. They're often more objective than subjective, and more optimistic than pessimistic. And this is something where, I mean, this might have helped carry Kobe to a lot of this, to his greatness. And not just the fact that he was more, the chart shows it's more set up for a public life in contrast to a private one, but also the fact that, you look at, I wanted to go back again into that the stellium he has in that ninth house in Libra, which has the planets Mars, Pluto, and Venus. The thing about this too is, I want to talk about the positive element or aspect of that, not just the fact that he, that might have played a role in him dying, in having a volatile ending, a volatile death, but I think what it could indicate too, it showed a lot of that energy into being maybe a powerful sports figure, or sports, which or he wanted to have power in sports. But with the Venus conjunction, that of course could have been very auspicious for making money in doing so. And the thing about it is, and it's also the fact that it's in all that energy in Libra tells me that he might have been more of a team player than people perhaps gave him credit for. Now, the Mars conjunct Pluto could show the energy into wanting control, but at the same time, he really doing something with a lot of focus, I'd say, determination, and where he really would not, be deterred. He wasn't going to allow himself to be deterred by extraneous influences. But I think a lot of it played that stellium, having the stellium in Libra, could show that he might have been closer to being the consummate team player, or at least more so than people gave him credit for, because Mars is about energy. Pluto might have given power to that, and Venus, of course, was where he was able to make money in doing so. And if you're making money doing something, you're obviously, you're usually going to be pretty good at it. And you have that Libra energy, which indicates to me that this could have been done very well by being the team player, by collaborating with others in a common goal. This falls in the ninth house, and the ninth house can be associated with sports in astrology. He also has Neptune, interesting enough, again, being in the 11th house in Sagittarius. This could be an indicator of pursuing really sport dreams, fantasies of sports as an aspiration and goal. Uranus in the 10th house shows where it can be an unusual type of unorthodox career that he had, where he, in being in Scorpio, gaining some kind of perhaps something where he would have some power in it. So those are some things I thought were interesting in his chart. Also, Jupiter in Cancer in the 7th house, which could be very fortuitous. Jupiter, of course, in a very good position, being in Cancer, and it's also very fortuitous for conquering open adversaries, which of course is in competition, and also with a lot. It could show an expanded, Cancerian, dedicated, devoted, unconditional love for competition. he emulated, I believe, Michael Jordan's style. So some of the knock on Kobe is that he was like, maybe a slightly less, weaker replica of Michael Jordan, but he still wound up being one of the greatest players we ever saw. Legendary basketball player, and somebody that may surely he might be missed, but certainly will never be forgotten. And anyway, one last thing I want to say was an interesting transit too, based again, not to be redundant, but with Kobe Bryant having, the Astro.com chart, which has the C rating, that would put transit South Node in Capricorn very close proximity to his natal ascendant. And I think sadly in some cases when you have a transit of a South Node, I mean, you're going away from something. Of course, the ascendant rules can be the vitality. So it's like it's almost like transit South Node approaching the ascendant could be going away from that vitality, that life of that person, sadly, and maybe that's how it may have manifested in this particular case. And of course, being in Capricorn, carrying some despondent energy, sadly, with it. So, but anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for my take on the natal chart of Kobe Bryant. And until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.